Hello, this is Max Straker. I want to talk to you about this program here, which is VoiceMacro, speech recognition enabled macros. So I'll do a demonstration in a minute, but I just want to put this proviso here. Because I'm running OBS, it tends to suck an awful lot of resources off the computer, so it's not triggering them very well. So it might take 3 or 4 times to actually trigger them, whereas in fact in normal times they trigger 95% of the times quite easily. And I've seen other demos and they have the same difficulty. So let me just do this now. Stuff, news, and that one triggers straight away. And you see how it's not quite highlighted the thing, so I'm going to have to click into that so it makes that, and now I can go page end, page home, page down, page up. Doesn't seem to like that one. Tab left, tab left, tab left, tab right, tab right, tab right, close tab. So it works reasonably well there. A couple of them don't quite work, and there's ways of testing that out. Now, I just want to say the reason why would you use this? So the reason why I'm using it is that I'm actually getting quite a few pains in the back of my arm because I'm getting to be an old wrinkly. But I ended up doing some things where I went and bought myself a programmable gaming mouse, and I used that initially to actually activate using the mouse button, so I could actually activate a whole lot of hotkeys. So this one here is actually the one that I just fired off by a voice command there. And so this little one, so I actually have an extra button that pops up a menu which is done in order hotkey, and then I can select a whole lot of different things through here. So that saves me doing hand stretches for shortcut keys that I'd actually have on my computer. And then I came across the VoiceMacro one. I thought, oh, well, I'll test that out. So to a certain extent, the reason I'm using it is because I find for the accessibility things, it's quite useful. Now, I came across this gentleman here who is a disabled gamer that uses voice macros. And he uses terms like fish, tree, dog, very, very simple short words, which are very concise so that he can do good commands while he's gaming. So maybe fish is turn left, or go to the left, or go to the right might be tree, or shoot, 3 buttons and things like that. So he has short, sharp things that he can recognize and do. So that's how he uses. Now I've seen a couple of other demonstrations. Now when I first used this, it wasn't working for me very well, and I got a bit frustrated with it, so I tried another one. I tried this one called VoiceBot Pro, and you've got a 30-day free trial. For one computer it's $20. For as many computers as you like in your house, it's only $30, and it's for a lifetime license as such, or until the computer dies in a way. But this one, when I actually looked at what it actually had, it was a lot more limited than the free version. So when I went into the documentation, it seems to have an awful lot of stuff. And look at all these buttons and things and stuff that you can do in it. So I thought, oh, well, this is far more interesting. So although I got the VoiceBot Pro to work, and I would have invested in the money, I suddenly thought, no, this one actually has a whole load of other things that I find quite interesting. And because I'd use something like Order Hotkey for productivity, this one tends to have scripting items that I can actually use. And we'll talk about some of those later, hopefully. So the issue which I had with this was it wasn't recognizing for what I do. So if we just pop into the program first of all, in the right hand side there's a little 3-bar menu through here, and it has a recognizer section. And when it's going to the recognizer, the only one it has is Microsoft Speech Recognizer 8 for Windows, English, USA. Whereas the VoiceBot one had 3 or 4 different recognizing energies. I didn't change any of the interface things through here, but when I actually went back to here, there's recognition speech settings that pops up the Microsoft or the Windows one for speech programs, and it creates a file where it's storing my speech. Another thing I want you to draw your attention to here is the mic, and to see that it's responding quite well. Now when it goes quiet, you see there's a little sign at the bottom here that says too soft. So it's saying I'm not quite picking it up, so you've got to speak a little bit louder for those sorts of things, or move your microphone for clearer. So just be aware of that. Now what this does, you can press this button here to go into this, or else you can go, I'll just close that down, close, or you can go into here and recognizer training. So in this recognizer training, it gives you some sentences, you read the sentences, it then replaces that sentences, and there's a little bar from 0 to 100% or whatever, green bar, that it starts filling up. Now the thing takes about 5 minutes, but you've got to go through the whole lot. So here we are. I am now speaking to my computer. The computer is learning the sound of my voice as I speak. This will help the computer better recognize what I say. Speech recognition can recognize many speakers very accurately, but training the computer will provide an even better experience. So this goes on and on and on, and if you do this, you can actually go back and redo it again, and if you do it once and then do it again straight afterwards, it'll actually give you a whole lot of other sentences to go through, and a lot of them are sort of training, and it's starting to recognize your speech. So the speech one that it has was English US, and of course I'm a kind of a Pommy Kiwi, so I've got an English accent and I've got a Kiwi accent, or I intonate with some of the Kiwi words. So of course it's not going to be recognized too well, so it needs to be trained on my voice to do things like one of the ones here, when I was saying stuff news, it was actually spelling it STAFF was coming rather than SDUFF. So this is why this bottom line here is, if you find that the triggers aren't working, it's worth looking on here to see what it's actually copying. So if I go BBC, it recognised that as BBC. So if I have another one through here and I go weather, it recognises weather and it opens up the weather site. Close tab. It's horrible and rainy at the moment. Close tab. Close tab. Close tab. So there are other ones out there. So it's a VoiceMacro one, the VoiceBot Pro, which I tried, and then I went back to VoiceMacro because I've got the speech. It recognised me a bit better. It's working a lot better. So I stopped with the VoiceBot Pro, and I thought I'd explore this one first because it has a whole lot of other things. There's a third one called Voice Attack that this gentleman talks about as well, and that one's something like $10 US. So again, but I didn't bother doing that because I really wanted to explore the VoiceMacro one through there. So I use that one, and I also use, in relation to that one, this program here, which is MaxLauncher, and I find the two actually fit hand in glove quite nicely, because I can trigger off a lot of these. So this thing here, MaxLauncher, is another free program. So if I just go about and where's the link? Help, visit site, website. So this MaxLauncher is another program which is for free, and what I find is really good is you can tie in a whole lot of scripts, or you can tie in scripts, you can tie in programs. So like down the bottom I've got N for notepad. So if I just say notepad, notepad, notepad. No, it doesn't seem to be doing that one. Oh, yeah, it has finally opened that one up. But if we just look at what this is doing, if I just right-hand click on this and go edit, it's basically, I've given it a name. You can select an icon or choose an image for what you want there, and then I've just given it a URL to where I want it to go. Now to trigger that off, I've got Control Spacebar, which actually opens up MaxLauncher. Then I can type tab 1 for the browser. I don't need to do that because I'm already on 1. And then if I type X, it goes and opens stuff. So I actually have to do 3 shortcut keys: Control Spacebar for one, and then in fact I actually only need to do X for the second one through there, and it'll do that. So what I'm doing with the voice command is basically just doing that triggering through there. Now on this one here I've got a whole load of browsers, and I've got a couple of programs like OneNote or Obsidian or some things there. I've got a whole load of auto hotkey scripts through here. So I've got one which will do something like red crosshairs, and then if I trigger that one again I can close the red crosshairs and it turns that program off. I've got some Python programs, and I've got some other overflow things and stuff through here. So this program has 3 rows times 10 columns, and then there's 10 tabs. So there's 30 items that you can put into here, and times 10. So you've got 300, plus you've got the F1s up here as well. So there's a phenomenal lot of place that you can put in data that it'll trigger and do things for you. So in the one that I was using here, where I'm using the mouse button to do that, I'm actually using that's in first place because basically that's where I'm activating an awful lot of things. Now I do use the taskbar a lot as well, and if you're using a taskbar, if we come into something like Obsidian, if we right hand click on the icon, if we right hand click on the thing, we can get to properties, and we can create a shortcut here. So in here we can go Control Shift Out and U, Control Shift Out and U. It's gone sulky on me. Control Shift Out and U. Oh, I think it was already there before, and it's firing it up automatically. So I've done something naughty, cancel, and it's firing it up anyway. So what I mean is you can actually have the ones which are down on here, and you can create your own shortcut key to actually open them up. So once I trained this up, I suddenly thought, well, okay, then let's just test the things that I do quite frequently, and so I ended up coming into here. So the first thing I just want to draw your attention to is if we go into Edit, this is the interface of what it looks like. So you have this, if we click on one here, the one for Stuff News here, you can see it's voice activated through here, and it has a whole lot of actions that it's doing, like it's doing a keyboard, pressing some stuff, and we'll go through this shortly. Now I just want to stop through here, and the other thing that I just want to draw your attention to is that it has a group, and the group's called browser. So inside the browser I've got these ones here, and inside online I've got these ones here, and if I just double click on it, it collapses so that you can tidy it up. It kind of, and you can also move them up or down whichever way you want for items in the list as you got them as the ones that you use more commonly. So that's quite good as a setup phase. Now this is the profile that I've done to begin with, but coming with the computer, it loads up this demo profile that does some quite interesting things. One that I was playing with to get it to actually talk to me was it actually has speech text. So here's one that I think is quite similar. So you can test these ones through here, and if I wanted to, I can actually deactivate that so I don't do it. So I can test part of the lines of code, and I can just isolate a small bit and I can activate it again. So if we just go in here and test.
Hello world. My sprinkler goes like this and comes back like that.
And then it's got a comment through there which is just highlighting through here. So this is a good way to test it, and then you can test it on the voice command and go okay. Now if you activate one that you've got through there, you've got to do a save so that it remembers that it's through there. So the other thing with this is when we actually come in here to the profiles, if we go across to Edit, there's the voice demo one that's there, but then I've got my Max one here that I set as default. So every time it opens, that's the one it's listening to. Now you can get it to change profiles, and I'll talk about that shortly, although I haven't been doing too much of that. I've just been testing the very basics out at this point in time. So there's a lot of things in there to play with. So let's just say we're on Max, and we're going to leave that one. Now this is the thing, you can have several profiles. So if you were using it for games, or you were using it for Excel, or you were using it for Word. So maybe you were using something like Microsoft Cortina for Word, and which was you doing the transcribing stuff. But then you might want to do some editing, in which case you could actually use this voice control to actually edit certain things, like go back 2 words, go back 1 paragraph or something, delete line or delete things and stuff like that. So it can work in. Now, this is something I just want to make a point about. I am quite anti, Siri stuff and like Microsoft Cortina listening to you all the time. So I never ever use those sorts of things. I've got my little Android device here, and I hope I've turned off all of the items so it's not taking my information and putting it up in the cloud and selling it to third parties and stuff. I have no problems with using voice activation or voice controlling things if it's on my computer. So this one here, if we just come back out of there, and if we just go add new, and if we go, no, sorry, I wanted the other one through there. So I've got to close out of that and come into here. If I go into here, the recognizer recognizer speech sentences are going into a file on my computer. So it's not going up into the cloud. So that's something that does, it's something that I find quite irritable, how they're using all of my information and I get nothing in return for it in a way. So again, and from here you can go into the train profile, and if you go into train, no, why are you getting sulky there? Doesn't seem to want it. One of the things that I have found, I'll just comment out, there's a recognizer dictionary. Why is that not happening? Oh, here it is. Cancel. I've got to cancel out of that because that other one was active. There's one in here called Recognizer Dictionary, and you can add a new word. So we can put in a word and we can just say trees. Next. And then it says we've added that word. You may choose from the following options. Record a pronunciation on finish. So if I go finish and then I go record, trees, it doesn't stop, and I can't finish or cancel out of I can just cancel out of the thing. So that doesn't work for me. So I don't know if it's a setup I've got on my computer or whatever. So let's just go into here, and with the macro again, this is another thing which I think is quite nice. It's a very versatile program from the point of view is you can voice activate the command, and you can actually give it a macro name, like we'll actually just say Y space Y and do that. We can give a description of what it is. Now we can activate it via VoiceMacro, and that's so I've got to say Y, or we can do a keyboard and mouse, and we can press a key. Now I found with this, a lot of these ones didn't work. So you suddenly say, well, why would I use a macro to start a macro? But the thing is that you can have maybe 15, 20 actions or 5 actions through here and just use one key to actually trigger them, or one macro key to do. So in here, you can actually have press a key, maybe A, and then modifier keys Shift plus Control plus Alt. Or you can have a key code through there. You can have something like caps locks or something. I don't know what, or break or backspace, which you could use with some of these modifiers or something. So you've got all of these things, but I found none of them worked. I did find that the F keys worked. So the volume ones, or the ones, the F keys along the top, seem to work as keyboard and mouse activators. But when I was trying the normal keys with modifiers, they didn't seem to work. And then I was trying to use something like the mouse with a modifier through there, and it seems to allow you to do that, but I haven't tested that out, or when I did it the first time it didn't seem to work. So you can, instead of using a voice to activate things, you can actually compile a whole lot of other shortcut things and then just use another hotkey to actually do it. The other thing that you can do is you can use joysticks and gamepads. So if you're using those can actually be the trigger points. Now, I don't do any gaming, so they're not really for me, but just be aware you can do it. And the last one that got me quite excited is that they use scheduler. So you can set a schedule for things. So trigger this and run it on, so you can say run a file or run a script every day at 2 o'clock. And I've got ones which I've got on my server, which is running 24/7, and that one every day goes and gets some information about a whole lot of sensors. It goes through a pandas data frame to restructure it, and then puts it into a CSV file, attaches it to an email, and then sends it to me and another couple of people. And it does this on a number of things overall, and it's very, very good. So this is something that I will be playing with in the future. The one thing with the scheduler that I will make a point of, you've always got to make sure your computer's open at the time that the scheduler is going to work. So that's why it works really nicely for servers. And there are some things in the Microsoft scheduler that I think you can have it 10 minutes after you open the computer or start Windows. It'll go and trigger and do something, so you can suddenly think, it needs to do it. The ones that I've got have to be done at a certain time of day, otherwise they don't work. So you can put it on whichever group that is doing. So now we can do some actions. So we can have an action, and then we can actually have an action. So let's just make an active of one of these. So we're going to go, the action is a space bar, and then we're going to have the modifier, which is the control, and we're going to click on it. So when we get it, we're just going to do one click, and that's what it's going to be. And again, you've got the key code here. So if you want to use, if you've got hotkeys or something with different odd keys, you can do ones from on there. And then we go OK. Now this next one that we're going to do, we're just going to go into tab 4, into tab 4, and we're going to do open up the red crosshairs, and then we're going to close the red crosshairs. So this is one that I'm going to do. So we have that. So we're going to do another one, which is another keyboard, and we're going to press any keys. So it's going to be tab number 4, and then we're going to do a third one, which is a keyboard, and I think it's O, which we're going to do. Now we've got all of those strings up there, and we're going to test it now. So when we test it, it comes up and we've got the red crosshairs. Hooray, hooray. Now we've got that one there. Now we need to come down here and go save. Get out of it. Go save. So that's now saved. So when we come back into there, if I go, well, I'll actually just go in here and turn it off, and then go why, and there it comes in. It doesn't quite do the crosshairs, one of them is missing. So what we can do now is, where's why gone? What did I put that under? There isn't a little search button through here. Why? No. Oh, here it is. There we are. So what we can do instead with that one there is, instead of doing one for turning it off, we can just come up here and copy it and paste it. And it says, do you want to keep the original? And we go, yes. And so we've got two instances of why, but we go into the second one and we're just going to go YZ, and we're going to just change the last keyboard one to P and go OK. Now we can test that, and it should turn it off, and it turns it off. So there we have it. Now once you've done that, you've got to remember to save it. The other nice thing that you can do is that you can export this. So you've ended up with a whole item of things that you can do. You can then export it to another computer. So here I can actually put it into a file, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and save it as that. And now that's saved all of that profile and everything in there. I think it actually also saves the other profile as well, so it saves everything. So that's quite good, where you can go into another computer and you can open up all of that. But there are provisos of things that you do. Now on some of these, I'm just going to go to BBC. On BBC, I didn't do it. I'm going to do that again, and let's see if I can get it right. BBC. 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 There we go. Up blast, and I move the mouse. Normally, the very last step of that particular command going through there, if we just go into the BBC, is we're moving relative to the top left. We can got lots of different choices through here. We move to a coordinate of 300 along, 300 pixels, and 300 pixels down. And then I'm clicking. I'm doing a one click. And I'm going, okay. Now the reason I'm doing that is when I'm in here, it's not necessarily active unless I click on the window itself. And I started to do this, but it seemed to be with the OBS thing that was stopping it. So I ended up clicking onto that just to make that was active, because otherwise what I was finding, it was opening up, but it was like, I'm just going to close this. Okay, close. I'm just going to close that. This is active, and so the one at the back isn't. So you see this is slightly grayed out. So if I drop that down, now you see that brightens up. So what was actually happening, I was opening up the program, but I wasn't in the window. So you have this thing where it's interacting on the window on top. So if this is the window on top, it doesn't recognize. So if I try going tab left, nothing's going to happen because it's not in the browser where those commands work. Whereas if I'm in the browser now, I can go tab left, and it seems, oh, there we are, tab right, tab close tab. I changed that. I've been fiddling with this, and it's sort of catching me out on a few things. So this is one of the things I was using the mouse button to do here, and so this is what I wanted to draw your attention to. So if I sent this across to my other computer is another laptop, but it's got a slightly bigger screen. So when I actually move the 300 and the 300, it goes to a different position, and it's actually clicking in the bar at the top, not in the active page. So this is something you've got to be careful about when you're choosing and moving scripts from one computer across to the other one. The other one as well is this set up the same as it is on the other computer, because if you haven't got all of these in the same right, unfortunately this program as well, you can in the options things or something, you can go and export that interface to another computer. But again, you've got to make sure that all the things are pretty much the same, so they work together. Then it can cross across quite easily, as it is most. The two computers I have are the same, apart from the window screen being things. So instead of 300 by 300 on the other one, everything has to be 500 by 500. So that one works there. So just be aware of those sort of little oddities and stuff. So inside here, there's all of these other little exciting things you can do. Oh, sorry, I just want to go back through and talk about another one. Now, if we look at this item here, this is a space bar, and then we put a modifier key. So we can have something like an A, and we can have a modifier key like Shift and Control. So you would actually press Shift, Control, and space bar, and that would activate a certain thing. So that's called a hotkey. There's also another one called a hot string. Now a hot string is something like this one here, DDFF. So that's not doing it very nicely. DDFF, there we are, still not doing it right. DDFF gets a bit sulky in this particular program. It works in other programs quite nicely. I've also got another one which is just DDD, and that's still not doing it right. DDD. No, it's still not doing it. It should be doing the 2025. So what that's doing at this point in time, if you think I'm doing DDD, and what it's then doing is it's going back and deleting the DDD, and it's then replacing it by today's date. This one here, I actually have DDFF, and when it comes to the last F, it goes back and deletes those and replaces it with the other one. So they're called text expanders, but they're also called hot strings as well. So instead of a single key and modifier keys, you can actually have a string of letters or letters and numbers or something like that that will trigger a string replacement of some description. So the program that I'm using for doing those ones are this one called, so let's just look at DDD. This one here is, and this one here is I can go in and insert through here date and time snippets and things like that and add different fields, and I can get it to pause to wait for things, and I've got a hotkey that triggers that, which is Control plus Shift plus 2, and that will go and do that. Or I can use the DDD abbreviation, or there's the other one, DDFF, which does the other ones, but it's doing the full date and month and year. So that's a different hotkey. So that's a hot string that I'm using. So the point that I'm making here is that inside of here you can do keyboard shortcuts or hotkeys. You can do, and you can do mouse positions. Okay, but if you, we actually want to delete that one there. But if you wanted to do a hot string, you'd need to use the recorder. So the recorder, you use the start button, and then you type in the keys that you want, and then you stop it, and then it remembers those keystrokes that you've done. So you've recorded a set of keystrokes, then it'll actually activate it through there. So just be aware that you can do hot strings if you use hot strings, because I actually found I started to use hot strings because they're very good mnemonically. It's like, you know, DD for date or day, or the DDD, which is the date, and then DD, and then the next one's over was FF to do it in the long date format and things like that. So you can do that. I'm just going to delete out of that. Oh, sorry, bugger. Which one's that? Oh, that's my BBC. I want that one. So I need to go and action. We just go cancel, and let's just go into BBC again. And we got the one on the Z. Okay, then, and we don't want the keyboard mouse one, which is okay. Because I've done that or I've modified that, I've got to come down here and save just to make sure it works. This is another thing I got in trouble. I was doing things and I forgot to save, and then when I closed the program down and opened it up again, suddenly they'd all disappeared again. So just be aware of those. And again, another nice thing with here is it's got all of these things, so you can actually do your own scripts. So it's got if else statements and stuff like that. You've got set variables, so you can create a variable and give it a name and then use it in something. You've got loops, you've got toggles and rotates, so you can toggle on and toggle off, and then you've got exit loops and continue and stuff. You've got an insert comment, so that's handy as if you're doing something a bit fiddly and you just need to put a comment in the middle of it. Another one is you can window to the front and activate. So if you're doing something in your browser, you can pop it to the front and just make sure that that's in the front so it's active when you go and do something, which is when I was giving you that demonstration. When I pop this thing up here, this is to the front, so we'd need to come here and bring this to the front. So there is a command that will allow this to the front. Then you know that isn't, you are not in that situation where you're trying to get this to activate, but this is the live window, so it's ignoring that. So that forces this to come to the front, and then you can do it. So that's some of the things you can do. Now, some of the shortcuts that I've got through here, you know, ones I've actually used this thing here, MaxLauncher to actually do, but a lot of them I'm actually using the Firefox shortcuts to do the page down and the page up and the tabbing across and things like that. So they're just Firefox commands. So if you're using Chrome or Edge or something, you'd have different ones for those sorts of things. So at this point in time, I think that sort of covers most of the bits that I just want to draw your attention to with this. I've mainly demonstrated it using on the browser, just if I'm using it on other programs it can slow down and stuff. There's a couple of caveats with this. So to a certain extent, I'm at home and I work from home, so I'm in my office. and I can use this so I'm not disturbing anybody else. But if you're working in an office, maybe having voice commands, you might need a little mic on it or something like that, so that you're not doing it, or be slightly more remote from other people, because it could be irritating. Whereas if you work from home or something like that, then it works quite nicely. The other thing as well, which I would like to try, like I do some CAD stuff, and I have things like L for line, so it's kind of quite easy to remember. And then I have another command, REC, which means rectangle, so I go REC spacebar, and spacebar in the CAD program is enter. So it's quite nice, it's a big space bar, so you don't have to hunt for the enter key, and then you just click at 2 points on the screen and it'll draw 4 lines, so a rectangular box inside the thing. So and if it's circle, you type CI and then draw a point and then drag it out to do the radius of the circle. And so the reason why CIC is usually copied, because you're using that far more frequently than CI, so the ones you're using most frequent, you know, are the shortest in a way, similar to how this gentleman would be doing that. He'd have short words because he's using them in a great frequency and wants it to understand. I do find when I start doing things and I put a new key in, I've got to watch what it says. So if I go stuff news, what I was finding with this, instead of typing stuff, it was actually typing STAFF. So earlier on, I actually changed the trigger word to STAFF news, because then it would work quite well. But when I actually did the training on the thing, it ended up, it would recognise stuff a lot more frequently, and so it was a lot easier for those ones there. So from my point of view, I think it's very good. I want to try seeing if I can train it for some CAD. So one of the next projects I'm going to do, hopefully I've got a little bit of time to be able to do some voice activations when I'm actually doing the project, to see whether that works inside the project, because it might be a lot quicker to do that. So instead of using my left hand to actually type out a lot of shortcut keys, I can use a command to actually do that instead. So I'm quite keen to see whether I do that, but then I need a specific profile to be for that particular program. So depending on your programs, and from the point of view, if you're doing some gaming quietly in a corner somewhere or something like that, maybe if you use your mic or something, it would be quite good for gaming. Just go left, right, up, down, you know, jump, and have those key ones to actually get you through a program a lot more easily, instead of actually using a lot of keyboard shortcuts. But I think actually having short words and crisp, so that they're very concise, will allow you to actually play the games. But I don't do the games, because I know how distracted I'd be by playing them too much. So I hope you found that of interest. There are a lot more sophisticated ones through there. I did try doing one. I've got one which caps to. What this one here does is I take a whole lot of screenshots for a blog post that I do of just a daily diary, and I take a whole load of screenshots and they go into a certain folder. And what it does, it deletes all the images out of that folder each day, so I haven't got a whole load of masses of images coming through. Then I have another one which is caps 1, and this one here opens up about 15 tabs. A lot of them are redundant now, so that I can actually just look through my news in the morning. So it gives me the weather and 4 or 5 different news sites, and also COVID. And I started it in COVID, and I sort of haven't gone back and changed it very much. But it's handy, is that it suddenly opens up all of the ones that I do, and then I also just look at the power generation, because I do spot prices, so it's interesting to see how it changes throughout the year and through the day, and the power prices and things. So there's a few things that I explore, and so it's handy that I've got something that I just do a trigger through that and do those ones. So those, you know, some of the hotkeys and stuff that I use on a regular basis, and you know, like I can go T-bird, there we are. So it comes up with my email for T-bird, and I haven't done it. Well, an interesting thing in the T-bird, the Thunderbird, is the Thunderbird tabs. So the tab left and tab right work quite well, and then also I have ones here. I don't know if it's going to work. Zoom in am I there? Zoom in, zoom in, zoom, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom reset, and it resets the thing. So that's quite a handy one for doing that. I'm still exploring ways of actually navigating through the articles. They tend to just tab each time for the next articles. I can't remember if it is a tab one or something. If I'm on that, no, I can't remember what it is for the things, but it only does one at a time. So whether I want to jump to ones, actually it's easier just to point with the mouse. But the page up and the page down are kind of quite a handy thing to do. So I hope you found that of interest. I think that this, to me, I looked at this in 2019. I've got a little video out there on that, and I was using it to log into a WordPress website. So it was using an auto hotkey script that was clicking the mouse in different points on the screen. And it sort of worked, but it wasn't a particularly useful use case, really. I could just run the script with the hotkey. It was sort of a fun thing to exercise. But I think for what I'm using the computer now, just for the daily stuff of checking up on things and checking my mail and checking things, I think it's a handy thing to have. And I will be using it more in the future, but I'm interested to see if I can use it in more advanced ways. And I think that's where looking at and exploring the demo profile to see if there's some quite smart things I can up and running to do that may be useful. You know, again, if you're doing scripts in here, I can do scripts in here. I can do scripts in A-Text, which I find is a fantastic program. But and then I find just for hooking a whole lot of things into one place so they're easy to find, this is absolutely brilliant. And but between A-Text is where I actually do some program. The nice thing with A-Text actually is that you can do HTML, you can do scripts. And like you can do Batch Shell, PowerShell, JavaScript, VB scripts. I've actually set it up for Python, and I also, one of them I've actually set up for auto hotkey. So all it's got to do is just associate that. So I find for the little prototyping, testing things, those are my go-to sort of programs for this. But this one definitely does have a bit of versatility to it. As I said, the one that I was fascinated is this speak test one, but I actually found inside of let's just select that one, inside of Firefox, it has a I've got a button for that, I think.
Honor that trust.
Yeah. So I can actually do a read text. I've got it. It's a bit of a robotic voice. I don't know if I can actually find another voice for it, but it's something if I wanted something just to be read, because there's a couple of news sites that to get to the bottom of the article, you've got to zoom right out. So you've got to have it down at that sort of stuff, so it'd be quite easy to just grab something and read it. One of the things that I do is I do something like copy from there, and then I get a notepad and paste it into there and then read it there. But a lot of the times it messes up the formatting a bit, so just grabbing a bit of text and getting it read to you sometimes is the quickest way of doing it, so that you can sort of get the general information. Overall, I'm pleased with how far I've got with this. I did find when I looked on YouTube and places, I didn't find that much information for it. The documentation is okay, and I think the fact that he's given, or he or she, that's a bit sexist, isn't it, has given a whole lot of examples is really, really brilliant, so I need to work through that. But I didn't find that there was a simple... there's a sort of demonstration of people using it, and but it was nice to kind of go through all of the items, and what caught me out at the beginning was the training of the speech and especially because my accent's so different from the ones that it expects, this was something. And also the fact that you can use this bit here to actually see whether you're enunciating or it's recognizing that enunciation. Like when I go X, 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 you see it actually types EX, EX. So it doesn't type just the letter X. X, X. Now that should have started something. Oh, it opens up Excel for me. There we are. So that was just another thing which I found as a bit of an issue, is when I call a program, a lot of it opens up another instance of a program. So if I go to the VS Code or something here, it'll open up a new instance of VS Code. So if you've got one already open, it won't open that up. So what you've actually got to do is that you've got to use the Windows T button that comes down to the bottom, then type E, which will then bring you to the first program beginning with E, and then you've got to press enter, and then that would have opened the one that was in there already. So there's a few things that you've sort of whereas you think it would automatically just open up the opened up program in the tab, it doesn't necessarily do what you think it's going to do. So I find though, if I've got Notepad, the Notepad seems to open up the existing one that's already open, which I find quite good. But some of them don't, so you've got to go through and find a different methodology for actually opening up the things that you need to do. But overall, it's a very, very good program, and I would recommend it from the point of view of using it from a speech activation point of view. And it's nice because you suddenly think, I want to read the news. I want to read the news from a certain thing, AP News, or I want to read Reuters or something like that. So you can use those words straight away to do it. You don't suddenly have to think, I've got to go Control and Spacebar, then I've got to look up which one is it that I'm using there. Actually, I haven't got Reuters on here. And then you can go and click on it straight away, whereas you can actually just say the word or have a... So as I said, I would use the term stuff. I've got a whole lot of stuff when I was talking to somebody else, but if I use stuff news, and it didn't do it, stuff news, there we go, and then that does it. So I've actually got to see if I can refine some of the things that I'm doing there. Zoom reset, it's not, I don't think that's active. Zoom reset, Zoom reset. No, it's not at that point in time. You've got to do it back up there. So I would recommend this. Hopefully, if I find there's a few other use cases that I have with the more complex items in it, I'll do another video on that. I was quite surprised that I'd used this program before, but again, I don't think I just sort of thought, it's a novelty, but I didn't use it that well. But in this case, I do definitely think it's a lot more useful now than what it was before, for how I use it anyway. So thank you very much for watching. If you found it useful, please give a thumbs up. I'll put links to all of these things in the in the comments, in the notes down below. So I hope you found that useful and something that you can enjoy. Auf Wiedersehen.